Welcome to Championship Week Video Notebooks, Hoops HD
Day
style.
zero. Day
Day
zero.
Welcome, everybody. We are recording this here Sunday evening, March 3rd. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, joined tonight by David Griggs, John Titel, Rocco Miller from Bracketeer.org. We may have one or two others jumping in here. We have a pretty quick podcast tonight.
Right. We got a long show tonight. Selection Sunday, 2 weeks away. We are going to be on the air the entire time.
What we do want to do is give everyone a little bit of a heads up of what we're going to be doing here over the course of these next 2 weeks. We are going to be recording one of these podcasts every single night from here on out, at least one podcast. But these are going to be our Championship Week video notebooks where we're going to go over news and notes of the major conferences. We're going to be discussing the the results of conference tournament game, previewing other upcoming conference tournament games, being joined by Joby Fortson as well. Joby on just as we get going here. So we got an even bigger panel tonight.
But we're going to have one panelist for each team in the ACE tournament
before
the night is done.
I call Lipscomb.
Yeah.
But before we get into the all the stuff with the conference tournaments, David, you wanted to take a step back here and talk to both, I think about Titel and maybe to Rocco a little bit about another topic.
Yeah, Titel joined us, I want to say, is it 3 or 4 years ago, however long it was. He's been our selection committee guessing expert now for all that time, and he's been one of the best in the world at it. I think he's third or fourth in the standings. The first year he was here, he and I talked for about 5-10 minutes, just to kind of like how he got into it, how he does it, and we thought it would be kind of good since it was such a light night tonight to kind of do that again. So how did you get started in this, and when did you notice that you had this unique talent of guessing what a room full of strangers were going to do?
Your flattery will get you everywhere. So, I think it probably started at least 5 years ago, and I was like, it seems like a neat thing that Lenardi and Palm and these other guys do at these other big sites. But in theory, anybody with some time on their hands and a computer at their fingertips can give it a shot too. So, at first, I tried to just observe, because it's one thing. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that Duke and Gonzaga are going to be very high seeds, and the Ivy League champ is going to be a much lower seed, for example. Although the Pac-12 champ might sneak in right around that same spot, So after you observe a little bit, then you just kind of crowdsource it, because it's one thing if me and Lenardi agree on one thing, but if 100 other bracketologists think otherwise, then maybe I need to take a second or third look at something. And then it's just a matter of constant change, because it changes every day from day one to day end of the year. And every game affects other teams who they've beaten or lost to in the past. And just to set the record straight, I believe I'm 9th out of 127 in the bracket matrix over the past 5 years. So I'm certainly aspiring to top 5 this year, but we shall see.
Okay.
Well, Rocco, you have your own site also, Bracketeer.org. You've been doing these podcasts with us for about a year now, a little over a year, I think. How about the same question as to you?
Yeah, so I mean, similar to Titel, I think it started for me 7-8 years ago. I started taking a stab on it just on my own, not really publishing it. And I think I started publishing it 6 years ago. But it actually started for me just being pretty frustrated with Lenardi's projections and Palm, and thinking that maybe, hey, I'll give it my own shot and see if I can at least get closer to the actual bracket than they do. I just thought there was a lot of misinformation on television, and I quickly respected what they do, because it's a lot to juggle. There's constantly different updates that happen as results come in, and it's just really, really fun to have that perspective on the entire landscape of college basketball, the bubble, the auto bids, the at-large spots. So then over the last couple of years, I think I've really gotten a lot stronger with fine-tuning the simulation of being able to select seeds, scrub a seed list, and understand what the committee cares about, what the criteria is. As John said, there's a whole matrix, that I think I discovered about 5 years ago. So the last 2 years, I've finished in the top 15 and 2 years in a row. So I think I'm finally getting to a good place, almost into Titel level performance. And it's just creating a lot of opportunities and getting a lot more connected to the national college basketball community. So I just love it, and it gets better every year.
Well,
And I mean, between the two of you, I mean, we have one of the best groups of bracket projectors out there, don't we, Dave?
And when you put us all together and we do the mock committee, we finish around 100th out of 100. But one of the things I can't figure out, and this is what's frustrating with me, because I can look at the team sheets and look at the teams and have my own opinions, but what I seem to be hung up on is, at least with Titel, there's been years where he's nailed a team that I just thought it's like I would consider it a bad selection or a bad seed by the committee, but he's nailed it. And how do you keep track with what 10 people are going to do? Some of them are not very smart, or that do you ever factor in? Do you ever look at the committee and be like, well, this person's an idiot, so they're going to miss these teams. I'm going to seed them a little.
No, I mean, I think that it's a couple things. So, I mean, you have to understand the universe in terms of if there's X number of auto bids versus X number of at-large bids, that kind of is less to worry about, because if you win the conference tournament, then you know they're in. And then, obviously, when you have Rocco's famous bid thieves come in there and steal a bid or two, then you have to readjust. And you get better over time. Like Rocco said, it really is like part art and part science. And with the net ranking this year for the first time ever, I mean, maybe I'm going to have a poor year because, I would have had a good RPI year, but this isn't an RPI year.
Well, I guess, Joby, let me ask you something here, because you make the JNG rankings, which are using a computer formula to try to almost do the same type of thing that these guys are doing. And that has some pretty good results also.
Among fellow computer rankings, right. I've been the best out of the published rankings, computer rankings over the last 3 years when I really started diving into it. Though in all candor, KPI did beat me last year. Of course, he's sitting in the committee room with his boss, but just kidding, Kevin. But I've never hit Titel, and I haven't done a cross check with Rocco because Titel's right. There is some art in it. I can bring you the science. I mean, that's exactly what the JNG tries to do, is bring you the science. I think I do a pretty darn good job of it. But there is an art form to it that no computer ranking will ever be as good as the best human predictors. I don't care if you get an artificial intelligence component in here, because the fact of the matter is the decision makers on these seed lists, on these brackets, are human. They're not computers. There is no right or wrong, and so there is an innate sense you have to draw from. The example is, I look at my computer rankings. Mississippi State's either a 4 or 5 right now. I know that's not real. Gonzaga is a 2. I know that's not real. I know that there will be changes based on those folks. And so, but you've got to be true to the program as well. It's not like I can go in and type in and go, add X amount of points to Gonzaga. Ooh, I know that they will be a 1 seed if they win out. And who knows? They've climbed up to 5, I think, in the JNG. Maybe they can pass a Carolina that loses again. I don't know.
So I guess the long story short of all this is that if you want to know where teams are going to fall, look at Titel's, look at Rocco's, look at the JNG rankings, and it's going to be somewhere in that range. Because
if you want to know where they should be, then look at our mock committee.
If you want to know where it should be, where David thinks they should be, look at his. Otherwise, don't look at it. One
more real quick question, and it's a very short answer. I know we got to get moving. You mentioned you've been doing this 9 or 10 years. Worst selection ever?
I'd say 2012 Tulsa.
Yeah, that would be one. Yeah, that was the worst one I've ever seen.
UCLA was really bad in the JNG called it. UCLA in 2015, 2016 was a really bad selection. I don't care if they won their first round game against an overrated SMU team. They were a bad selection, especially as an 11. And I touted on the website that the JNG called it, and I disagree with it just terribly.
I'm sure I've blocked it from my memory, but it seems like Syracuse often gets in when I don't have them getting in, so probably a Syracuse-related fatality.
And then make a run to the Final Four?
Yeah.
That does not justify the selection, in my opinion. But
All right, I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead, and what we're going to do here is what we're going to be doing every night is reviewing any conference tournament games that took place, and there weren't any today, and
No.
previewing the upcoming games. And let's get right to the previews. And we should be pulling up a screen share here any second now, but having a little trouble with it. There we go. Should be coming up, and we should be seeing the first conference tournament bracket here, the Atlantic Sun, on the screen right now. David, is it there?
It is.
Okay.
And, we actually kind of weird. Only 8 teams in the conference tournament, but as fate would have it, there was an 8v9 de facto game. We saw Kennesaw State beat Stetson, thank you, the other night. And, at first the game comes on and there's about 50 people in attendance, literally, if that. And I'm tweeting, well, the first knockout game, and it's just this huge event in Atlanta, and I hope the police are able to handle the crowd. But you watch the game, and I guess I go through this every year. You forget how different knockout games feel until you actually see one. And that was one. And I know you watched it, Chad. You and I were back and forth on Twitter during it. Didn't it feel different, even though neither team was any good? Neither team really had a good year. It's very unlikely either team is going anywhere past the quarters. Well, Stetson certainly isn't. But there was a certain energy and urgency to that game that you hadn't even seen at any point in the season from anybody.
And Kennesaw was also playing for Al Skinner. Could have been his last game as head coach. He'll have one more game now, probably only one more game. But it was fun. Actually, I think Stetson had a fairly big lead early in the game. Kennesaw came storming back, picked up the nice win there. So, it was. And we're getting a lot better atmosphere starting tomorrow night, where we're in the actual real conference tournament games and not an 8 versus 9 game, but we're going to have these top seeds that have a legitimate chance to make the NCAA tournament playing. But I think we have John Salika with us now as well. So let me start with him because we haven't heard from him yet. But John, we've got the ASUN bracket up here. Looking into tomorrow night, do you see any upsets in these 4 games? Maybe we don't have him. Okay, John, we don't have you. So Titel, let me go to you. Do you see any upsets?
Audio, John.
I don't too much, except for the fact that North Alabama is playing with house money, so you never know what could happen. A couple of things to notice. One is that at the top, Chad has listed campus sites, which is important, and that every higher seeded team gets to play on their home court, so you should check out how teams did on their home court. The other huge X factor here is the 2-seed Liberty, their first year in the Atlantic Sun, and you have to wonder, and I don't know the answer to this question, who it helps more. Part of me thinks it helps Liberty because the other coaches in the conference don't know exactly what to expect from them. Part of me thinks it hurts Liberty because they don't have 5 years in this conference of playing against all these other players and coaches.
And I got to tell you, quite honestly, Liberty is my pick to win this conference tournament. You look at them and Lipscomb, they ended up tied for the regular season championship. Lipscomb got the tiebreaker. Each one on the other's home court, though. Rocco, do you think Lipscomb is going to win this tournament? Or do you think there's going to be an upset here?
Well, it's a good question. I think that game would be a great game. I think they'd get after each other. Both times they played, the game got away from the home team. Lipscomb fought back a little bit better than Liberty did when they were at home, and they ended up losing by 8, but Liberty had control the whole way. And they both have really solid players. Lipscomb, I think, is a little bit deeper, a little bit more talented. But besides that, I mean, anything can happen with that one game with everything on the line scenario. It would come down to, who's poised in those critical moments. I would go with Lipscomb just because Garrison Matthews is, I think, the best player in the league, and he's a senior, and this is his last chance to get back to the tournament. But if it gets to that game, I think it's going to be a classic. It'll be a must-watch TV.
And it's interesting, though, that we have 2 teams with some pretty high rankings here. And Joby, you being our rankings guy, let me actually pull their profiles up on the screen here.
Yeah.
There they are. And do you think there is a chance, if these 2 teams meet in the finals, Liberty wins it, that Lipscomb could get a serious look by the real committee?
I only don't because I think the spaces will slip away. TCU has not performed at the level that Lipscomb needs. This isn't like we'll talk about them later. Furman beating Villanova, who's wearing white. TCU is probably fading to a 9 or 10 type range. So it's like, oh, great, you won on a bye game on TCU's home floor. That alone doesn't get you there. Shouldn't have lost to Florida Gulf Coast, and they're going to get hit by the committee over that. They're out, as you can see in the J&G right now. they're just outside it.
55, yeah.
That mark. A loss to Liberty, even though Liberty's a good team, and with all the metrics, et cetera, I think they're still going to be on the outside looking in. But man, they're that 12 seed, because if they do run the table, if they are that 12 seed that can upset a 5 very easily, as evidenced by their win at TCU.
Right, and
David, go ahead.
another thing, like this is not the kind of team that in the last 2 or 3 years, especially, that the committee had been selecting. There was a time where first place teams that were basically in the top 50 or top 40 were getting in way more often than not, even if they were from under the radar conferences. But the one that sticks out to me, Middle Tennessee on the 12 line outside the bubble 2 years ago, is a sign that now, again, it's a different committee this year. Nothing ever stays the same, but the last 2 or 3 years, this is not the kind of team that they were selecting. But I also agree with you. As good as Liberty is, Lipscomb is built to win a game with a round of 64 more than anybody else in this league.
Right. The big thing is obviously they got to get there. Slika, do we have audio from you yet? No, we don't. Okay.
Try turning on your mic, John.
All right.
Try turning up the volume.
I'll tell you what we want to do is obviously those 4 games tomorrow. I think that, the Gulf Coast NGIT game may be the most interesting, obviously, because it's the 4-5 game. I don't think any of us, Rocco, you weren't predicting any upsets tomorrow, were you?
I can't really see an upset happening unless it's in the Gulf Coast game.
I think NGIT wins that one.
That could be a good one. NGIT has to travel from New Jersey down with 2 days' notice, so maybe a slight disadvantage for that. But the last time they played down there came down to the end, and Gulf Coast won by 2. So that should be the most competitive. But other than that, I can't really see an upset unless, like Titel said, North Alabama just comes out with no fear because they have really nothing to lose.
Well, Titel, how about that? North Alabama is going to be playing by proxy for either Lipscomb or Liberty, most likely Lipscomb. You can see in the bottom left corner there the way that all works. But we had this happen in the ASUN a couple of years ago where Stetson was playing by proxy for North Florida in the championship game.
The ever popular playing by proxy in the conference tournament. No, I think Rocco made a good point earlier about Matthews as a senior at Lipscomb. He's the defending conference tourney MVP, so we know that he can play his best when it matters the most. My other concern for Liberty is I believe they lost 2 conference games all year, and it was to the 3 seed who they might have to beat in the semis, and then to the 1 seed who they might have to play in the title game. So nice chance for revenge tour, but difficult because you're playing teams who know how to beat you.
I'll tell you what, if you want to see these conference tournament brackets or any of the conference tournament brackets, first of all, go up there on the website. There is a tab. They're all there. They're going to be updated more or less as games go final. It should be pretty much live updating. And we have one other thing we want to discuss here tonight, David, and that is a big tool that we have on the website. I'll put that on the screen here.
Yes.
For the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee. There it is.
Fantastic tool for the NCAA selection. And we get, we get hype on this. Oh, the committee doesn't really look at that. They don't really use it. But I've asked David Warlock. They have internet at the hotel. So the committee can absolutely look at this board. Here it is, the NCAA Tournament Survival Board, and we've been updating it. I know this is the first night we've busted it out on the notebook, but
this has
been on top of it for about a week now.
Right, and this was where we were heading into the day today, actually, right on the screen now. There were 336 teams left.
Yeah.
And David, you want to describe what the different ways that teams are noted here?
Yeah, you look at, so the teams in bold you see there, those are teams that we are telling the committee that they should take no matter what. Like, you have to put those teams in. So you come here and you see Duke in bold, you see Houston in bold. The committee will know that they should select those teams because they're in bold. The teams that are in italics, it's like maybe you take them, maybe you don't. We'll see. In the teams that are just in regular type, and that's the vast majority of them, albeit not in the ACC, but if you scroll down, you'll see those are teams that need to win the automatic bid. And one of the things about where we are now, and this can't be understated, is on Selection Sunday, undoubtedly, I'll be upset about something. You'll be upset about something. Everybody's going to be upset about something, about either a seed or a team that wasn't selected. Right now, regardless of what the committee does, all 336, it's about to be fewer than that, but all of the teams on this board, no matter what their situation is, get to play until somebody beats them. So all of them literally have a pathway.
Yeah, and there were two teams that were eliminated today out of Conference USA. Both UTEP and Charlotte cannot qualify for this USA tournament. So as a result of today's results, here we go. We were down to 334 teams left.
Yeah,
Drum roll, please.
There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Hey,
we have
got Stalika.
Stalika. Who's going to win the A-Sun tournament?
A-Sun tournament, I'm still going to say it's going to be Lipscomb.
All right.
Stalika, I don't know what you've done, but you sound so much better.
And I look so much better, too, in the background.
Anyway, I kind of liked it when we couldn't hear you.
I'll tell you, on that note, David, we have one other thing we're going to be doing all week this week before I go to your final thoughts from everybody. And that is we are going to be getting a little help out there to try to solve some of college basketball's biggest problems.
Yes. Yeah, we will be reaching out to people that we think that we can. I think Chad's going to go first because he's the host. But every night we're just going to reach out to someone with an issue that we have with college sports and ask if that person can help.
And I have a big problem with the way replay has been going lately. There has been just so much replay, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 6 minute, 10-minute replay breaks, all three officials yelling at each other, trying to figure out what it is. We got to get this done. We got to get a timer. I say 30 seconds, David. I know you said 60 seconds, but we need somebody to step in. And I figured tonight, who better to step in than the person who just signed the biggest contract in North American sports history. So here we go on Twitter. I'm reaching out to Bryce Harper, just signed for $330 million. And if anybody can solve replay, it's him. So Bryce, congratulations on the record-breaking contract. Now, can you kindly fix the problem with the ridiculously long replay delays in college basketball? Thank you.
Bryce Harper, Chad.
Bryce Harper. Can he fix that? He can do everything.
You could have reached out to Mark Emmert. You could have reached out to
Bryce
somebody
Harper.
on the rule. You're reaching out to Bryce Harper about replay.
Yes, and we'll let you know what he says tomorrow night.
For help.
No. I thought it was a good idea. David, we'll have to feel it.
Well, we'll see what Bryce Harper can do.
I'll tell you what, on that note, let's go quickly through any other thoughts from each of you as we head into the championship fortnight here. Titel, let me start with you.
Keeping it in the Bay Area, I did not think this was going to be Cal's week to explode on the basketball scene. We saw the men's team win a game, which is enough right there. But then today in the women's side, senior Kristen Anigwe, the first 30-30 game in college basketball in over 15 years, 32 points and 30 boards in Cal's win over Washington State on Sunday. Bravo.
All right. Joby.
It'll be very interesting to see how, and I might be stealing Rocco's thunder because he is Mr. Bid Thief, but I think that is going to be the story of this year. There are so many conferences where a team that is not inside the bubble could easily slide in, and it could be Rocco's conference, Pac-12. If some team other than Washington and possibly Arizona State wins, if Titel's Wildcats win, does the Bid Thief take away from its own conference in that situation, or does it go out and grab a Clemson or a Utah State? God, I can't believe I have to actually say that name. Et cetera, down the line. It'll be very interesting, but the bids will shrink. I think it's inevitable you'll see 3 or 4, possibly 4.
Well, you mentioned Mr. Bid Thief, so why don't I turn to Mr. Bid Thief, Rocco Miller, who's probably your new name for the week.
I'm happy to be Mr. Bid Thief. I'm actually rooting for all the bids to be stolen because I'm tired of this bubble, and the more bids that are stolen, of course, the less of a bubble that will be left.
Go to Paul.
And speaking of Bryce Harper, I'm actually in Philadelphia tonight, so it's good to
good, you can go.
Yeah, so it's good to associate.
Go ask him about fixing replay.
I will. If I see him at breakfast tomorrow, I'll make sure to stop by and make sure he got his tweet.
Oh, good. Okay.
But I will
He's
say
actually in Clearwater at spring training, but that's okay.
Yeah, good point. A good point. Well, maybe next time. But I'll say just about the A-Sun tournament. One final thought there. Both semifinals, to John's point, Liberty's got a little bit of a trap with North Florida coming in. They've actually won 6 in a row, so they're actually the hottest team right now, including that win over Liberty. So that would be a really intriguing semifinal, albeit it would be in Lynchburg. The other side of the bracket, assuming Lipscomb gets by, and if Gulf Coast can get by, that's of course the same Gulf Coast team that nipped Lipscomb. So if we get that Final Four with the top 4 seeds, we've got some really intriguing matchups without guarantees because of the fact both of the top 2 teams lost to the teams they'd be playing. So this could be a fun tournament more than just a great final.
Stalika, I think we still have audio on you.
That is correct. I feel a little bit disappointed that we didn't have both Liberty and Lipscomb go 13-1, because this would have been the first time we would have actually had the net determine a potential tiebreaker for the number 1 seed in the ASUN. But as it is, Lipscomb gets it because of their better strength of record against, I think it was North Florida, and then Florida Gulf Coast didn't hurt them as much in the seedings. But as we get later on in the week, you'll see more of a likelihood in, let's say, the Southern Conference, where someone may end up knocking out Wofford. But as long as it's not in the quarterfinals, I think the Terriers are golden for getting into the tournament.
Yeah, I agree with that.
David.
More or less just again, this is one of the more key nights of the season. Championship week starting tomorrow. It is the best 2-week week of the year, and I don't know. Like, it takes a minute to get going. I think sometimes that you're so excited for it to start. You're watching some of those ASUN games or those early round games, and they're not quite hitting it. But anyway, it's just going to be fun watching it progress down throughout the next 2 weeks. And like you said, it's almost sort of bittersweet because, every day that number dwindles down and you kind of feel the season melting away. But man, it's fun. I'm serious when I say this. I like these 2 weeks more than the NCAA tournament, I think.
They are great 2 weeks. And I think on that note, we have one final order of business for tonight. David, there's the key. You are locked in the puppet bunker.
We're not doing the puppet
You're in there.
We're not doing
Doors are locked.
No, we're not doing it.
Everybody, David will not be coming out until we have a national champion crowned.
No.
So on that note, the doors are locked. I'm Chad Sherwood. Got John Teitel and Rocco Miller next to me. David Griggs now locked in.
You said we weren't doing that. Well, I said.
David, we'll get you a little food at some point here, but have a great night, everybody. We'll be back again on Monday evening with a full Hoops HD report, more Video Notebook, and a lot more.